Y2K is a new horror comedy directed by Kyle Mooney, which has been released in cinemas and is a satirical and comedic tribute to the 90s and the Y2K phenomenon. It's set on December 31st, 1999. It's a humorous reimagining of the new year, where the world collectively thinks that technology will either totally shut down or turn against them altogether when the new year begins. And it's ripe for a funny and over-the-top premise where electronics turn against their owners in rebellion, which honestly seems more like it would work for a Saturday Night Live gag, or as a short as opposed to a whole movie. And to be fair, I think this could work as a whole movie, but the way the filmmakers go about it here really isn't that funny. It's at times humorous and has coming-of-age tones with a good range of characters, but none of them ever feel realistic or like they have a ton of depth. I really just didn't like this movie, and I think it does come down to the fact that it's not really that funny, and the characters aren't that memorable. It's as simple as that. I don't expect Y2K to be Nora or the brutalist levels of great, but it really does have a fun premise that doesn't take full advantage of. I think a good comparison here would be This Is the End, which is another end-of-the-world R-rated buddy comedy that's really funny because of its cast of characters and how they bounce off of each other. I think this movie doesn't really have that, and that is what's missing. There really isn't a fun dynamic at play here. At the beginning, it's kind of there with the Jaden Lieberherr's character, and he likes Rachel Zegler, kind of gives us a little bit of something, and she's in a relationship with the Kid Leroy's character. Then you have the friend character of Julian Dennison, and spoiler alert here, everyone, he gets killed right away. And so quickly the movie moves into more of this like funny end-of-the-world genre. It stops being so clever and having a great time with its cast and its gags, and it just goes into this more loosely funny exposition about technology. There's a lot I did like at the beginning, like I'm saying with the high school elements. It's both nostalgic and has this original twist with the end-of-the-world genre by incorporating the Y2K phenomenon, but it never really fully feels like the end-of-the-world movies fleshed out. I think the robots and the machines that come to life could have been more funny. The movie could have used more bizarre, over-the-top humor to solidify its world building. It's a bit too loose and light, and it doesn't lean into being as campy and crazy as a movie like this should be. I keep thinking of Edgar Wright, his aesthetic and tone. I think if they kind of used a movie like that, it would be way better. His movies are very over-the-top, the camera work, the way the characters speak, just the music cues. This movie doesn't have that. It's much more low-key and subtle, but it just doesn't work with this kind of movie. I think this should have been more over the top. Kind of goes through the motions of a high school coming-of-age story, mixes it with the Y2K phenomenon, doesn't really do an amazing job at creating a band of likable characters. It's also not like they have any goals besides stopping these robots that come to life, and the robots themselves, I think, needed more personality. They just have this really bland, simple goal of unifying to destroy humanity, but for what? They never really get into that. A movie like this with stoner and sex, condom jokes, could have come up with some bizarre and random reason robots decide they want to end humanity. Like maybe they see how Julian Dennison's character is obsessed with sex, always carrying around a condom, and they decide that it's best to eliminate humans who are dirty-minded or something like that. The way it just kind of introduces these murderous robots doesn't really give them any agency. It doesn't really leave the threat of them feeling all too real. I really wish this was like This Is the End, where the humor comes from this group that's stuck together trying to survive, and then adding these survival situations on top of that group dynamic. But this both fails to make a likable group that's stuck together or puts them in situations where they have to survive that actually feels suspenseful or tense. They just bike around and kill some robots, travel to their school where the robots are uniting to shut them down, and they find Fred Durst, which is kind of funny for like a one-off gag. But it just isn't that great. A movie like This Is the End feels so big because of the cast and their dynamic, on top of how it frames its end-of-the-world story. I mean, that film starts with an apocalypse in Los Angeles at James Franco's house and ends with a dance party in heaven with the Backstreet Boys. This just doesn't feel like they go that far at all. They start in a house, they end up at their school. This movie just should be way more crazy, should just dial into Y2K in a very fun way, and I just didn't think it was that over the top or funny. And I think the biggest sin you can make in a comedy movie, comedy horror, is having a movie that isn't scary or isn't funny or suspenseful. So I really just didn't think this movie was that great. Let me know what you guys think. If you liked it, I don't really recommend it, but let me know what you guys think. Thanks so much for watching.